blistering starts to a tennis match.
Shakespeare got it wrong. It wasn't King Lear. It's King Lear.
LeBron James with no regard for human.
Yuvraj Singh finishes things off on style.
This is a News Laundry podcast, and you're listening to NL Playoffs.
Hello and welcome to yet another round of NL Playoffs. My name is Gautam. I have with me my co-host Aniket. Aniket, say hi.
Hello world.
Aniket, round 11. You know what? Last time when we met on the podcast, we talked about how we were already through 10 episodes, and I mentioned in passing that we have the same number of episodes as Anil Kumble did on that Delhi test. And lo and behold, 3 days or 4 days later, Ajaz Patel gets 10 wickets in an innings just like that, just so randomly out of the blue. So maybe we have something going on for us.
Like I said, I hold my stand. Who's counting, right?
Yeah.
So we are at episode 11, and who's counting it? I'm pretty sure Ajaz Patel's not counting his wickets either. No, just kidding. But yeah,
He was definitely counting that day. I think at least once he got to wicket number 8, he was like, okay, this is probably going to happen. It is kind of surreal to watch because usually these things don't happen often, obviously, but just looking at how bizarre the whole situation was, because here was a normal left-arm orthodox spinner, first innings of a test match. The pitch was not turning square. He just bowled really well. But you need a lot of things going for you to get 10 wickets in an innings. So he had the rub of the green. He had really good skill. He executed pretty well. And he also had other bowlers not doing as well, or other bowlers being unlucky because nobody else got any wickets.
so I had a question. So if you remember when Kumble did this 10 wicket haul, you could see like the Srinath was like deliberately bowling wides and stuff, right? So
Yeah.
he actually had the backing of the team. How was it? I didn't watch this. So how was it in this case? Like,
No, I don't think they were deliberately going out of the way to I don't know, to tank or something so that the Jazz could get the whole 10, because both of the ends were operating with spin. So it was quite clear that they were really not going for bowling wides or bowling full tosses or just faking it, which I think makes this record even a little better. I mean, it's a terrific story as well. Ajaz Patel, originally born in Mumbai, went to New Zealand to play sport there. He's obviously a New Zealand citizen. Comes back to Mumbai and gets 10 wickets in his town or city of birth. Kind of a great story. It ties it all together.
yeah, it's a good comeback, if you may.
For sure. But Aniket, we really have a bunch of exciting topics to cover. I don't think none more so bigger than the Formula 1 season they just completed. I deliberately did not talk to you about this race at all because I just wanted to talk to you about this on the episode to be as fresh as possible. Quite the drama. But we'll cover that at the lag end of the episode, because that's the main topic that we're going to cover today. We'll probably cover the whole race at length. But we do have a lot of headlines to go through, because it's been a jam-packed on the field and off the field sports headlines that's been going around.
Right. So just to add, today is the 18th of December, and it's 9:18, I believe, Indian time. So that's our time and date of recording. And just to summarize the headlines for this week, so let's go briefly snippets instead of going into the details. Let's just pull out snippets of the headlines. So let's start with NBA Gotham, something that's really close to your heart. So Steph Curry breaks an all-time three-pointer shooting record.
Here's Curry for the record. It's good. There it is. Stephen Curry, the all-time three-point king in the NBA.
He has 2,977 3 points made.
And he's now had 789 games.
Just to give some context to the listeners, the previous highest 3-point scorer in the NBA, in the history of NBA, was a guy called Ray Allen. You might know him from the Miami Heat days and before he played for the
Boston Celtic. Yep.
Right, exactly. So to lay some context, he had 2,973 3-pointers. That was the previous highest point. He had those many 3-pointers in 1,300 games, 1,300 games in total. Now, Steph Curry shattered the record in 789 games. So he shattered the record by playing 511 games fewer. That just gives you an idea of how good a shooter he is. That just gives you an idea of how much the game has changed now just because of one guy, which is Stephen Curry. He's kind of changed the way offenses have played in the NBA forever, I think, because now you see everybody shooting threes. Everybody shooting from way back where it's not just beyond the arc, but you see the range expanding. You see centers now staying behind the arc and trying to shoot threes. If you can't shoot threes as a center, you're seen as a bit of a liability. So he's kind of completely changed how offenses are played, and with that, how defenses are played in the NBA.
Yeah, it's super interesting you say that, because I remember watching Ray Allen, like you said, from Boston Celtics. So it used to be Kevin Garnett, Ray Allen, and Ray Allen would do these 3-pointer pops. I would call them. He would pop from the 3-pointer, like especially from the 0 and 180-degree angles. Like that would be his comfort zone. Like you put the ball to him there, and he would just like swish it from there. So it's super interesting though you say it, because this record has actually been shattered, because Ray Allen also had such a long career. And when you think about it, I think Curry still has a long way to go. So I'm pretty sure this record's going to uh, increase only.
I would venture to say that he would not be caught anytime soon either. He has still 5 years left, maybe easily. So he's going to. I don't know how many 3-pointers he's going to score, but as he gets older, he's going to shoot more and dribble less, obviously, and run less. But yeah, that record is, I think, here to stay. It's kind of unbelievable. He's one of my favorite players to watch. If you can, if any of our viewers can go watch Steph Curry live, that's something to behold. Even his warm-ups are awesome.
For sure. I'll add it on my list as well. To watch list live. To watch live. But yeah, so as you said, Steph Curry is the king of shooting from downtown, right? Like the NBA commentators say it. It's like he shoots from downtown. So yes, that's the NBA side of news. Let's get to cricket, India's sport. Hopefully this changes soon. We diversify into many more sports, but till then, let's follow up what happened on cricket. Gautam, you shared a very interesting article with me over this past 2 days, and I would let you take the lead in this and talk about the whole Indian captaincy situation that's going on with Virat Kohli, Rohit Sharma, and Saurav Ganguly. It's a triangle there, and I don't know if you include the secretary Jay Shah, then it's four people problem. But I'll let you take it from here.
The off the field BCCI stuff keeps growing day by day, I think, especially these days. You remember how in the last 2 or 3 episodes we spoke about how the whole hiring Rahul Dravid as a coach was kind of how Rahul Dravid was forced into taking the job. So to lay some context about the whole captaincy situation, India is going on a tour to South Africa. I think the team is in South Africa right now. Before this tour and after the T20 World Cup ended, Virat Kohli came out and said he issued a statement and said, look, I want to step down from T20 captaincy, just T20 captaincy and nothing else. I want to step down from T20 captaincy. I think Rohit Sharma is an able leader. And it was more or less understood that Kohli would step down as T20 captain, Rohit Sharma would take over, but Kohli would remain the captain of the one day side as well as the test side, right? So it was later revealed when the team was about to be selected that day. The news came out that Rohit Sharma would be the captain of not just the T20 side but also the ODI side. So the rationale behind that was that it would be good to have Rohit Sharma lead in the limited overs format and then have Virat Kohli lead the side in the tests. And then, random leaks happened and Saurav Ganguly, I think, came out and said, hey, we asked Virat Kohli to not step down as T20 captain. He said he wanted Virat to stay as T20 captain. So that was that. Okay, fair enough. We thought Virat Kohli was probably not interested in being the T20 captain anymore. Now, Kohli had a press conference.
I think you meant ODI captain, right? Sorry for interjecting.
Yeah, ODI captain as well as test captain. Virat, it was understood that he would stay on as ODI as well as the test captain. Now, on the day of the selection of the squad for South Africa, apparently it was informed to Virat Kohli 1.5 hours before the selection meeting that he would not be the ODI captain anymore.
I was contacted 1.5 hours before the selection meeting on the 8th for the test series, and there was no prior communication with me at all since I announced the T20 captaincy decision up till the 8th of December, where, as I said, I got a call 1.5 hours before the selection meeting, and the chief selector discussed with me the test team, to which we both agreed. And before ending the call, I was told that the 5 selectors have decided that I will not be the ODI captain, to which I replied, okay, fine.
And then he was also asked about Saurav Ganguly's comment that he was asked not to step down as T20 captain and that Saurav Ganguly wanted him, to which he categorically denied it and said nobody approached me that I should continue on as a T20 captain. In fact, when he informed the board that he would not be the T20 captain anymore, it was received quite well. So he was received quite well, and they were very accommodating in that front. Like all things, Aniket, even the coach hiring saga and this saga, this seems so unprofessional. We discussed this last time as well. This seems very unprofessional on the part of the BCCI, which is such a big organization with so many resources behind them. I don't know what their PR is doing. I don't know what their communications department is doing. I don't know who is making the decisions. Nobody knows. No press releases, no statements now. They can't even say anything now because it's too late. So the whole thing seems to be very, very unprofessional in nature.
Well, it only begs further questions, at least in my head, right? Like, first question is, Ganguly, why did he even have to come and make that statement that he made about, we wanted actually Kohli to continue, but he didn't want to. I mean, the one thing that I appreciate about Kohli is whatever you may like him, hate him, he's a straight shooter. He's like to the point, and I loved his press conference. It was just sweet, to the point, just like a good leader should be, very transparent and forthcoming. And also, as we discussed earlier, this Rahul Dravid's hiring situation.
The whole thing seems to be a big giant communication mess. Obviously, BCCI was never good for PR anyway. I think they feel like they're too big to do anything, and I don't know if anybody holds them accountable or not. You know how BCCI works. You know how they think they're too big for school. So we'll see what happens in the future, but it is quite possibly the biggest gambit, as Siddharth Monga called it on ESPN Cricket Info, to take on the board, which leaves, as you said, Rahul Dravid, the coach, in a very precarious situation. I mean, at this level of sport, coaching is man management anyway. How you handle egos, how you handle personalities, how you handle conflict, more than how you handle the technical aspects of a player. So it'll be very interesting to see how how Rahul Dravid treads these waters in the future.
I'm actually very curious to see that, given he's such a, I don't know the right word, mellow character. I've never seen Rahul Dravid embroiled in any kind of. He's more of a touch me not, at least in my head, like, stay away, I'll do my thing kind of thing. So it'll be very interesting to come out and see what his stand is as the Indian national team's coach, because I think it's an important position to be in, and it has a lot of responsibilities on his shoulders. So it'll be good to know what he has to say in the coming months or years, whenever we find out.
Yeah, one thing for sure, as you said, is the team camaraderie, I think, will be good. I don't think there's any friction among the players or among the team itself. So that is there. But there's definitely now a friction between the Indian Test captain and the board, so which is always very tricky to traverse. Things get ugly. I know typically people within the BCCI, stuff like this happens. They always leak stuff, which is very, very dangerous, and things get, Twitter these days, and everything is a Twitter storm, and these strategically placed leaks will be definitely happening. So we'll see what happens. But definitely a thing that Virat Kohli would be looking, obviously, he's not been in great form these days. So if he's not amongst the rungs in South Africa, that pressure is only going to build on him, because there is this added fact of being on a collision course with the board.
No, I believe that these kind of situations bring the best out of him. Like, he's a fighter, so I hope he does well, and I wish the Indian team all the best. So just on a side note, I was reading a lot about on the net about the Rohit Sharma Kohli thing, but I believe none of that is actually true, right? Like, there is nothing, because it didn't seem anything from the press conference. It seemed like everything was in place. I don't know how it even came to light, but I don't know if you encountered it or was it only me, but I did kind of see these, like you said, plants or whatever they're called, and so
Yeah, I mean, just looking at Rohit Sharma and how he is and how Virat Kohli is, I don't think there's any issue. It's one of those classic, might have been leaks here and there, but obviously things like this are prime, ripe fodder for Twitter. So, it's always hashtag Kohli versus Rohit and blah, 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 and blah. I did look at some of the stuff, but, I'm really not worried about them not getting along with each other, because I don't think there's anything between them. Because remember when Kohli made the statement about stepping down from T20 captaincy, he mentions Rohit Sharma in person in that statement and said, hey, Rohit Sharma will be a good leader. He didn't come out and say I recommend him as the captain, but I mean, he need not have said it. It was obvious. I don't think there is anything between them. It's just a storm in a teacup.
I also 100% believe that, especially after the press conference from Kohli.
Yeah.
But then this was something I read online, so I just thought I'll ask you anyways.
Very, very interesting to see what happens with Virat Kohli now that he's seen now as an anti-establishment guy. So let's see what happens. I'm really excited in that sense.
Hope the best happens for the Indian cricket team. So I think that's what we can hope for, is the playing doesn't get affected, right?
Which brings us to the next big topic that's going around in the world of sports right now, which is all of the rise in COVID cases. We are seeing in the UK, the Omicron virus is rampant right now. They're seeing daily record highs with the number of cases. Manchester United's game with Brentford got postponed last week. The clubs have been asking the league to maybe hold off on 1 week's round of matches, but looks like the Premier League is staying put and saying that we are going to have as many matches as we possibly can. In America, we are seeing a lot of COVID cases amongst the teams. My Chicago Bulls, they've had a game postponed because literally 50% of the roster have been put under COVID protocols. NFL has been seeing huge number of cases. The Chicago Bears, I was listening to somebody say that their whole coaching staff, except for the head coach, are now under COVID protocols, which means none of them can coach, which is kind of interesting to see what happens on that front. They've already postponed a few games from Sunday to Monday. COVID has been everywhere. We spoke about how Novak possibly did not get the vaccine and how he might not play. Looks like he's going to play now. So it's rampant right now. Looks like Emma Raducanu tested positive, and she's going to miss the exhibition match in Abu Dhabi. So sports, as we discussed with Amit Verma, is a reflection of a society. It's downstream from society. So it's been what's going on around the world, and it's a little surprised that COVID is now everywhere in sports.
Which only tells us that, folks, we got to be careful, because if you're seeing the high profile folks get it, it is rampant and it is a part of our society. Like you said, I can't do a better job than summarizing what you did, apart from adding to the fact that even Spurs had like a major Tottenham Hotspurs, when I should be more precise.
Yeah.
The Premier League had a lot of COVID cases in their team again. So Leicester City versus Spurs game has also been postponed. And what I read now is Brighton and United at Old Trafford. That game has also been postponed due to staff and players contracting COVID. So this is a big deal. We've seen this happen before. I don't know. I believe Premier League should, just an opinion, personal opinion, the Premier League should put a halt onto all this, but then moolah, baby. So there's a lot of money. There's a lot of money involved here. It affects clubs directly. But then someone should study this, like the cost to club versus cost to country, right? Because it's also your healthcare system is taking a toll. Like, how does this work? It's an interesting study, I guess. Just to add one more point with the Australian Open is that Australian Open, which was the Australian tennis, initially said they had this strict policy. Now they have put a panel of 3 doctors in the field, one from the field of immunology, one from infectious disease and general practice, and they're going to take petitions for not having a vaccine and take it on a case-by-case basis. So that gives some hope for Novak Djokovic to come into this Australian Open. So we'll see how that goes. We'll follow that for you guys.
That is assuming that Djokovic is not vaccinated.
I mean, I should have stated that up front. I mean, we discussed this earlier in the previous episode as well. But because he's not come out and stated he's not vaccinated, but he's not come out and said he's vaccinated either. So, well, that's where we stand. And that's the COVID cases, Gotham, in sports, which is
Yeah, it'll be
very
interesting to see what happens, because now the teams are put in a very tricky situation, because sometimes they're having to field, second string, third string players, because their main players are either exposed to COVID or are positively COVID. So it'll be interesting to see what happens on that front, because it looks like none of the leagues, the NFL, the NBA, looks like they're postponing games here and there. The Premier League is trying to play as many as possible. The NFL is doing here and there, but the intention of all of these major leagues is to conduct or to carry on with as many games as possible. So because they've already, I can see their perspective as well, because remember, they have had 4 or 5 months of break and they lost a lot of money that year. NBA had to play fewer games, they lost a lot of TV money then. They're now at a point of making up all this money and schedules and whatnot. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. But man, as you said, COVID is still here to stay. It's not over yet.
Yeah, and the unfortunate situation is we've been in a similar situation before, right? So this is now the second time things like this are happening, and we only hope we learn from our previous mistakes, because someone who hasn't learned from history is bound to repeat the same stupid mistakes they've made earlier. So I don't know, Gautam, we should talk about this more in detail. I have so much more to add about this whole money versus should you play, should you not. Because like you said, it's been extremely brutal on these sporting franchises in general. Like there's been tons of 11-year loss, including my club Barcelona, which, it was not only COVID that drove us to the ground, but that was also was a major factor that played a role in is like not having fans in the stadium. There was no revenue coming in, so it's interesting. Let's track what's happening here, and let's hope things work out. But one thing we know for sure right now is vaccination is the way to go. Like these cases are there, they're mild.
Yeah.
The only danger though of playing in my head is that because COVID typically there's an onset period, right? So you don't detect it immediately when you contract it. So there is always this danger that you send your players onto the field where they are in that transitionary period, and then all of these sports are contact sports. So there's no one sport. There's none of the sports we've spoken about so far are not contact, barring tennis maybe. And then you have this danger of not diagnosing and you're contracting other players. So it's a tricky situation. We'll keep an eye out on how folks deal with this.
I don't think I can add anything to what you just said. I think moving on, we should move on from this depressing topic to some brighter stuff, which is our prime topic, as I guess they call it the showstopper for this podcast, which is the world of Formula One. The championship season, or sorry, the Formula One season has just ended with the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix, race number 22. Things went down, Aniket. This is going to be one of my biggest regrets in my life, that I did not watch this race live. I caught this after the fact. Even then, I was so excited. I can only imagine how watching this race live was like for you. Just lay some context for us and tell us what happened getting into the final race of the season. Spoiler alert, guys, Max Verstappen won in the final lap. But please tell us what happened. Please lay some context, and then we'll kind of break the race down.
Yeah, I also want to add to one of our 3 listeners who commented saying Formula One, please, on YouTube. Folks, here we go. So here we're talking Formula One, and we're going to try and summarize what actually happened in what I can only call is a crazy Formula One season. So just to lay the context, post-COVID, this was like a full complete season that we had. So previous season was cut short, and we had, like Gautam mentioned, 22 races that took place over the years. And going into the final race, Max Verstappen and Lewis Hamilton were both tied on 369.5 points. And the interesting 0.5 comes from one courtesy half race that they had, where they just followed a safety car along, and everyone got like half the points just for like, it was like the consolation prize we get in school, like you're after third, but they have to give you something,
which would have happened again in this race.
Yeah, and this is where things in Formula One start looking I don't know how
Grey.
to call it grey. Yeah, right. They start looking grey. So again, just to lay the context. So the final race is at Abu Dhabi. Both the drivers who are competing for the World's Driver Championship are at 369.5. The Constructors' Championship was won by Mercedes pretty comfortably. So they won the Constructors' title. Going into this race, the season that prior to Abu Dhabi race was very exciting because there was some crazy wheel-to-wheel racing between Max Verstappen and Lewis Hamilton especially. Both of them clashed numerous times. I think we all would remember the 51G shunt at Silverstone that Max got, which I would
Cops
call...
corner.
Yep, which
By
I
the way,
would
I
call...
watched that replay live again, Aniket. I saw a replay in real time as to how quickly he was going and hitting the barrier. It was kind of insane how what impact Verstappen stuck that barrier
Racing
with.
incidents.
Wonder what the stewards will think of that. Lewis was
Could Hamilton have done anything to give Max Verstappen room there and avoid that crash? He was on the inside, of course. Yeah. Was there a bit more room to the right that Hamilton should have been finding?
So 51Gs, just for our audience, just to put context to what's actually happening. So if your head weighs 10 pounds, with a 51G impact, it's 51 times 10. So you're actually going to have 510 pounds or 510 kgs. If you're using kgs as units, is the weight you're going to feel on your shoulders. So that's kind of the impact the driver had, and you could actually listen to him like breathe after the impact. When he stepped out, you could see him huffing, catching his breath. So that was crazy. And in my opinion, I'll add opinions here today. That was a proper racing incident. I think both the drivers were at fault, or both were not at fault. It was that kind of a situation. From there, after that, we went to the Italian Grand Prix, which followed on, where Lewis and Max were basically on... The cars were on top of each other, right? So Max is... I don't know if you remember, Gautam, but Lewis Hamilton comes out of the pit, and then he just comes ahead of Max Verstappen. And then over the next corner, you see Max's car on top of Lewis.
And there's Max Verstappen right behind Hamilton into the first chicane. Once again, it's wheel to wheel. Hamilton and Verstappen! And this time Verstappen and Hamilton have crashed out, and they are both out!
Which is pretty dangerous because you can see the tire actually hitting Lewis's helmet and stuff like that. So there was some crazy driving going on through the season, and that basically took us to the Saudi Arabia race, which was the penultimate race of the year. And Max Verstappen was leading on points. So, and Lewis Hamilton was coming from the back. So with Max Verstappen leading again, there was so much drama here, where Max was in the qualifier. If you remember, Max Verstappen was almost on the lap of his life for that qualifier, because Lewis was on provisional pole, which means that in the lap he had the best time, and then Max Verstappen was going for his hot lap, and he had set crazy times for both Sector 1 and Sector 2, and he was one corner away from the checkered flag, as they call it, the end of the race. And he just hits the wall and he loses his qualifier. So he starts P2. With that being said, Max is in the lead in the race. So he starts from second, but he takes the lead pretty quickly. So one thing I think you would agree is Max Verstappen is a crazy, aggressive driver. And
he is.
If you love him, you would love him for his aggressive driving, his style of driving, which we'll talk a little bit more about in the coming season. So there was controversies of him brake testing Lewis because they again touched.
Oh, they touched and they collided! What is going on here in Jeddah tonight?
He just brake tested me though, so I didn't know what's going on. It was just dangerous driving doing it.
It's crazy. Lewis Hamilton wins, and then we head to Abu Dhabi with both these folks being on level points, right? So there's a whole championship that's at stake.
And the one thing to remember here is that going into the race, they were tied for points. So whoever finishes ahead of the other wins. Or if both of them crash out, Verstappen would have still won, right? So Hamilton had to be a little conservative because Verstappen had more number of wins than Hamilton, correct?
That's exactly. So going into this race, if something happened and either both of them got out or Hamilton got out of the race, it would be Verstappen's title because he had more wins compared to Hamilton. Verstappen had 9 wins prior to the final, whereas Hamilton had 8. And one thing I want to add in this is going into this, you've got to say both these drivers actually deserved this 100% because Max Verstappen, every race he finished, has finished either 1 or 2. So that is mind-boggling. I mean, for a guy who's going for his debut world championship, who's racing a 7-time world champion, in a lot of books, an all-time great, who's going for his 8th world championship. So it was
also remember the stakes that are involved, right? Verstappen was going for his maiden title, and Hamilton is, if he wins this 8th, he passes Schumacher, correct? So is definitely now establishes the legacy of him being the greatest driver ever had he won this season's championship.
Right, and so the stakes couldn't have been higher going into this race, and coming into this race, it seemed okay. Like Max Verstappen started front, Lewis Hamilton took a very clear lead.
Great start from Hamilton off the blocks.
What a start! And then he takes a lead, and everything is going okay, right? So there's nothing happening. You're wondering, oh, this is good. So just to give context,
there was this one incident, though, right, Aniket, when Verstappen, I think it was probably in the first lap, or I don't remember exactly which lap it was, when Verstappen was trying to overtake Lewis, but Hamilton had to go wide, and he kind of cut some corners and went straight ahead. So looks like Verstappen was following the right rules. He was on the road and within those white line markers when he was trying to overtake. So I don't think there was any discrepancy there, but looks like Hamilton went wide and he kind of cut corners and even got a bigger lead than before. They did investigate that during the race and said no further investigation necessary. So that was kind of interesting. You could hear Verstappen saying, "Oh, obviously, of course, I got the ruling against me."
Yeah, for sure. And that happened very early on in the race where Lewis, this is not my words, his words. In his words, was kind of forced out because he like you said, he couldn't have had contact. If he had contact in this race, the race was done. Like, I mean, there was no the game was over for him. So he was super conservative, and that might be his words. Again, to add some background is in 2019 when we had the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix, Max Verstappen was absolutely dominant. Like, he dominated, and he was the winner of the previous Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. And there was so much talk about how that same thing would happen this time. But then it was also the other side of the story was that Mercedes had a much superior car for this particular track, because they had also just Lewis Hamilton strategically got a new engine and stuff like that. So there was a lot of this thing going on where the scale was swinging at different factors for different team, either Red Bull or Mercedes. Everything goes, at least you can add more to this, Gautam, but up to lap 53, right? So it's
even before that,
lap.
Aniket, sorry to interject. So even before that, everybody were both Hamilton and Verstappen were going for a one-stop pit strategy, right? So they took their one-stop pit strategy, and when Verstappen came out of the pits, Hamilton already pitted, so Hamilton was out front. Sergio Perez was behind him. And then Verstappen had about 8.5 to 9 seconds behind Hamilton, so he was quite far away because he just pitted. And this is where I think Verstappen's teammate came into play, because Hamilton and Perez were going at each other for good 5 to 6 laps there.
Back him up. Perez playing the ultimate team game here for Max Verstappen, and this is really frustrating Lewis Hamilton. It's going to be hurting his tyres.
Dangerous round here.
And he can give his teammate a bit of DRS for good measure, so great team play.
Oh, Checo is a legend.
Basically, Red Bull threw everything at this to make Max Verstappen, at least I won't say make him win, but enable him to compete and win this. And Sergio Perez did some crazy defensive driving to actually push Hamilton back. So the whole strategy was that when you hit apexes, which are the corners, those are the places you want to slow down and not give the competitor a place to overtake you. And he was doing this strategically so to reduce the gap between Hamilton and Verstappen, actually. So he really backed Hamilton out, and the time significantly decreased between Max and Lewis thanks to Checo.
He backed him up to a point where so much that when Hamilton finally overtook Perez, Verstappen was literally right behind Perez. So it was, I think, about 1.5 to 2 seconds gap now between Hamilton and Verstappen, even from P1 to P3. So he managed to reduce that 8.5 second gap by about 6.5 seconds, and then Perez let Verstappen through, but at the same time also give him DRS. So everything, he couldn't have done anything better than that as a teammate.
For sure. And just to add to this was the second time Perez was helping out Max Verstappen in Abu Dhabi. The first time was in the qualifiers. So he gave Max a crazy tow, which is also called a slipstream. So he drove ahead of Max and then just killed his lap. He just moved away, basically setting no time so that Max could actually use the slipstream and set the fastest lap. So this is the beauty of the sport again, right? Like, there is a lot of tactics, team play. It's very interesting.
Remember how we spoke about Rubens Barrichello for Michael Schumacher? We briefly spoke about Nico Rosberg, who was not a good teammate, I think, for Hamilton, because they were going for the championship at Mercedes all those years ago. But you need a very good teammate to win a championship like this. So I think, as to Max Verstappen's words, Checo is a legend for him.
For sure. And he also says he couldn't have done it without Checo, right? And I think which is true. It's not an exaggeration that this would not have been possible with some crazy defensive driving. And even Sergio Perez came out saying, like, he wouldn't have preferred interfering in someone's title challenge, but he did it for his team, right? Yeah. And he says Hamilton will understand, like, it's my team and I got to do what I got to do for my team. So there was like this beautiful sportsmanship spirit also coming out from these folks. So we moved to the 53rd lap, right? So it's a 58 lap race, and Hamilton in this lap is on 38 lap old hard tires, whereas Max Verstappen is on 18 lap old hard tires. And there is 11-second gap between Max Verstappen and Hamilton, with Hamilton in the lead. So 11 seconds is pretty convincing, at least in my book. So Hamilton's up for the win with 5 laps remaining, and Nicholas Latifi hits the barriers, right? So this Williams team crashes, and then with 5 laps to go, we have the safety car called out. And from here onwards, it's a shit show, Gautam. At least
it is.
I mean, I was waiting, because between us, I haven't spoken to you about this. So there was absolute radio silence. Like, I didn't speak to you about this, you didn't, because I think both of us were waiting to talk about this live on the podcast.
Yeah.
But after this point, and after the race, you said, how did you feel watching it live? I was pissed. Like, this was one of those things you experience. You're like, you're for sure seeing once in a lifetime race. You know that. But then when you come out of that pissed, and I'm not pissed. So I want to set the record straight. I'm not pissed because Max won, right? Like I said, he deserved it. He was top 2 every race he finished. He's insane. His driving is next to what people can only say Ayrton Senna and Michael Schumacher, the kind of an aggressive driver that he is. But what followed from here just broke my heart. And I say this, lightly, but after this, it was kind of wrestling, WWE kind of a script.
Yeah.
Should we go ahead and give our listeners a context to why we are ranting, Gautam?
Yeah.
I am ranting. So with 5 laps to go, the safety car is called out. So when the safety car is called out, Gautam, there is no overtaking that happens, right? So you just follow this train or a chain of cars, and you're going around
until the debris is cleared. Yeah,
exactly. Until the debris is cleared. So Hamilton, at this situation, so this is Hamilton's situation, is he cannot pit under the safety car, because if he does, he loses track position to Max Verstappen. So you can't overtake, but you lose track position. So if he pits, Max Verstappen is 1, he's 2. With 5 laps to go, it seemed like the race would finish under a safety car. So Mercedes were like, we cannot do this, right? But Max Verstappen, Yeah, and Max Verstappen had nothing to lose because he was number 2 and he goes in, gets a soft tire, and he comes out with 5 cars between Lewis Hamilton and Max Verstappen. And these these 5 cars between them are cars that have been lapped by Max Verstappen. So they are 1 lap behind where Max Verstappen and Hamilton are. And typically, in situations like this, the standard operating procedure, which has been put into the dustbin after this race, is that you let these cars which have been overlapped unlap themselves. So these cars would actually go and join at the tail of the train so that the first and second car are right beside each other. And after that, you have the safety car will do 1 more lap and go into the pit, and then your race restarts.
Right.
So this is standard operating procedure, what I just described here. So with 5 laps to go, the safety car is called, and they're under the safety car for 3 laps, right? So the debris is not being cleared. It's the 56th lap of a 58 lap race. So at the 56th lap, the race center, right, race control, says lapped cars will not be allowed to unlap themselves. So basically, this gap between Lewis Hamilton and Max Verstappen, the 5 cars between them will stay. These cars will not get out of the way.
Which means that if the race restarts with those 5 lapped cars between Hamilton and Verstappen has to go past. I mean, they will, when the race restarts, the lapped cars typically let him pass, but then that means he would lose valuable time. And if there's only 1 or 2 laps left, the losing of 1 second here and a half second there is quite significant, right? So Verstappen stood no chance if the lapped cars were between Hamilton and himself.
For sure. So you said it very well, like these lap cars would be shown a blue flag, which means they have to let the car behind them go. That would happen. That would still be detrimental to Max Verstappen's race because a couple of seconds can make all the difference. And Lewis would actually just fly because he had nothing in front of him. So that was the situation you were seeing in lap 56.
Tell us what happened when there was 1 lap to go.
Right. So then you go to lap 57. Now the race control says these 5 cars between Max and Lewis Hamilton can unlap themselves. And
out of
this
the blue.
Yes, and this is super strange. So this article 48.12 in the sporting regulations says that all cars have to unlap themselves. And here, 5 cars between the leader and the second person were told to unlap themselves. So that was like the first discrepancy. I'm not saying, I'm giving the matter of fact here. I'm not saying what is right, what is wrong. But this is what actually happened. Like only 5 cars out of the whole 18 or whatever were left were asked to unlap themselves. Okay, so this happened. So once these cars unlap themselves, the next protocol is that the safety car will return to the pit. So once the safety car is told to return to the pit, it will return in the following lap.
Yes.
So we are in the 57th lap. So if you say the following lap, it means the race is over under safety car. The race director, Michael Massey, out of nowhere, he's like, okay, get out of the way.
So not only the lapped cars are allowed to unlap themselves and go past Hamilton, but also the safety car is asked to go in, not in the next lap, but on the same lap.
Right.
As the cars are unlapping themselves, immediately there is an indication that the safety car is also ending.
These 2 points are problematic, right? This is what the world is debating. Like, can you do this? Can you say 5 cars, get out of the way?
Now, Red Bull, Christian Horner, actually, you can hear him talk to Michael Massey on the radio saying,
Christian and Michael.
Yes, go ahead, Christian.
Yeah, why aren't we getting these lap cars out of the way?
Just give me a second. Okay, my big one is to get this incident clear.
You only need 1 racing lap.
A team in the race should not be able to contact the race control or race director to lobby for shit like this.
No, don't say that. It's more fun and drama when we are listening to it live.
It definitely is, but I mean, I see a direct correlation between what has happened now. Because we haven't completed what has happened, so let's maybe get there. So just like Gautam said, this call comes in to the race director saying let us race. I have no problem with that. The problem is the situation is changed such that Max Verstappen is on a 1 lap old soft tire and Lewis Hamilton is on a 39 lap old hard tire case. So the pendulum has just swung towards Max Verstappen's style, which in my book is fair, right? This happens in sport. But the problem is it's been swung after bending a couple of rules.
Yeah.
And the stewards for Mercedes' appeal say that Article 48.13, right, which is the subsequent article of 48.12, which you spoke about earlier, it basically comes to summarize that the race director is kind of supreme. Like, he makes these judgment calls, I'm paraphrasing here. These are not the words, but I don't have them written here. But maybe I'm going to recommend something that talks about this in detail so the listeners can go and watch it in more detail. And I'm pretty sure they'll do a better job than what we're doing here. So now this is what happens. The safety car is called off and they say go.
We have 1 lap to go.
With 1 lap to go. And I was not surprised, right? And you can hear Hamilton worry on the radio.
Yeah.
He's like,
where is he? Right behind me?
Yeah, exactly. And Bono is like, he is not, but he will be, Lewis. So it's pretty interesting. After this, what happens, I think the world knows, is Max, to his credit, does this crazy aggressive move on Lewis Hamilton, I think in turn 9.
At the first opportunity that he had.
And I was so surprised that Lewis was so far off giving Max so much space. I don't think Lewis expected Max to make a pass there. And Max, being the aggressive guy he is, took the opportunity head on and just made it stick.
It's Verstappen, far enough back, he's going to make the lunge down the inside. Hamilton sees him coming. It's a late lunge by Verstappen, who takes the lead of the race. Verstappen now snatches the championship trophy from Lewis Hamilton, who's trying to fight back.
Hamilton does have a couple of more chances to overtake him, doesn't he?
He does. Unfortunately, he can't make any of those stick, right? And I say unfortunately not because I'm rooting for Hamilton, but just that I think everyone likes crazy racing. When you're racing wheel to wheel, you want to see them go at it, especially with 1 lap left. So I was hoping there would be a little bit more in there somewhere, like, back and forth, a little bit switching. But I see it's not possible because of the tire degradation that Hamilton has had.
I mean, Hamilton still tried. He almost went past Verstappen. I think it was this final overtaking try when he had a slipstream going for him. They almost touched, they almost went past, but Max somehow holds on and finishes that corner ahead of Hamilton. And then once he finished that, it was just, he was off to the races and it was pretty much done. You could even see Hamilton was like, okay, this is probably done. He gave up, I think, with about 4 or 5 corners to go.
One thing I must say about Hamilton is, like you said, he tried getting back. That dude is relentless.
He is.
He does not stop, and I love that about his attitude. As aggressive as Max is in his driving, and I think Max is so aggressive that it has made Lewis change his driving style a little bit to be equally aggressive and come out like he did in Brazil and in the previous races that we saw.
And you can also see in real time, which is why we should actually give props to the Sky Sports team. In real time, you could see as soon as Max overtakes Hamilton, you could see Toto on the radio immediately say,
I'm thinking, no, Mike, that was so not right. You need to reinstate the lap before. That's not right. Toto? Yes. It's called a motor race, okay?
To a very sophisticated sport, there are rules for a reason. You just can't say, hey, because this is the final race of the season, this is what the stakes are, we are just going to let the motor race. Because if we said that, there wouldn't be any place for the rule book anymore.
So we've spoken about how Max won this
brilliant championship battle, but the championship can only be won by one, and it's going Dutch in 2021. Max Verstappen, for the first time ever, is champion of the world. Lewis Hamilton finishes in second place after leading for so long.
Oh my Lord, Max! Oh my God! Yes! Oh my God!
Now, I have not got your thoughts on this, right? Because we haven't spoken. So, shoot, like, what did you think about the race after you saw? What are your thoughts?
Dramatic race. But yeah, I must say, I agree with you. As much as I was rooting for Verstappen, because it's kind of boring now to see Hamilton win time and time again. It's always great to see the underdog win. It did seem very unfair to Lewis Hamilton. You have to be gutted if you're Lewis Hamilton. There's no question, I think, that the rules were bent. Very, very... I think... I'm going to ask you this, Aniket. How do you think Mike Massey fared this season? He was in the spotlight quite a bit.
Going to be honest, I felt immediately after the incident happened that the race I should have done was put a red flag.
Right.
And the reason is, yes, nothing serious happened. Red flag is only for serious. But if you want to race anyways, there is no more fair condition to start a race with like 2-3 laps to go than a red flag, because then Hamilton gets to go back to the pits as well.
Correct.
Get a new pair of tires. So does Max, and you start from the grid. So you basically have a 2-lap sprint race or a 1-lap.
Yeah, and also
sprint
once
race.
the red flag comes in, you don't count the laps anymore.
Right. Exactly. So this might, if you had to race, this should have at least been an option that you should have thought about, is like, send everyone into the pits, start fresh, the most fair way. But the way the race director made the decision, it just left a poor taste in my mouth. And to summarize, I think he did poorly this season.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely looked a little gimmicky to me, that they were trying to add or force drama into the race deliberately, which was kind of, did seem fair. I think, Toto Wolff said he wasn't sure if Lewis Hamilton was going to come back next year after what happened. I think, which is a little exaggerated. The emotions were running high. Hamilton, I think, will be raring to come back next year with rule changes, and he will be ready to get the championship back from Verstappen. I think we are only going to see a more aggressive, a more single-minded Lewis Hamilton coming back. So it'll be great to see. But as far as the legacy of the race goes, do you think, when we did the Lewis Hamilton episode, by the way, definitely guys, go check the Lewis Hamilton episode out that we did after he won his 100th race. Remember how he won his first championship off of Felipe Massa, and which was rain affected in Brazil and
at Interlagos. Yep.
At Interlagos, yeah. And then it was very, very, very dramatic. We've seen other close finishes to the season. Where do you rank this finish? Even though it left a sour taste in your mouth.
So, that's a tough question, Gautam. I would prefer a situation like Interlagos over this, because that was like weather, tactics. So, with that being said, I would say Max Verstappen deserved to win, but he deserved to win in a classier way. Like that's my objection to this win, if I might say it that way, is that he deserves.
And Max Verstappen's team and Red Bull would say, look, we did not have any kind of luck at all going for us throughout the season. We had to take the luck that we got. They would argue that they got unnecessary penalties, undeserving penalties, hard done by Lewis Hamilton in Silverstone, and all of that stuff. So it is a game of microseconds and micro inches. The sport is that way, but yeah, it definitely seemed a little unfair. I would agree with you. I think there have been more fairer, dramatic finishes to the season than this.
And in all honesty, if I was in Max's position, I would take the win too.
Oh,
right? We are not debating that. I think, it is a win. He takes the win. He didn't do anything wrong. So the point here is, neither racers did anything wrong, right? That's the neat. It was the people, the management, or the race director who actually messed up. So that's what made this really sad. And both the drivers...
You could actually hear Lewis Hamilton on the radio say, hey, this seems manipulated, man. This is very manipulated.
Yeah. I don't blame him. I mean, because he had his hands, like David Croft said it, on the trophy, at least 1.5 of them. Yeah. So it was taken away from him, which is sad. But we'll see how he comes back, because year 2022 has a new car, new regulations. So I think we've spoken about this earlier as well, is that overtaking, which is difficult now in the current cars, is going to be easier. So cars are going to follow much closer. They're expected the teams that are not faring very well to give a slightly more fight. So the field's going to be open, especially with young drivers like George Russell, Lando Norris coming in. Because let's not forget, apart from Lewis and Max, there were some crazy races this year, because we had Esteban Ocon winning. We had Daniel Ricciardo coming back, taking a win in Italy. We had Lando Norris lose in Italy extremely tragically, and this was again one of those wet weather calls that he made. So it has been a crazy season to actually summarize. So
I think it's very hard to repeat a season like this because it had so much drama. But if it has at least half, next season has at least half the drama of this season, I will take it honestly, because this season was kind of one of those outliers, I feel like, because there's so much drama going on everywhere. But it'll be great to see the new cars, new people coming in. It's only 90 days to go, man. So 3 months. We won't be talking about Formula 1 the next 3 months. So we'll see what happens there. But I'm really looking forward to the next season.
This is our Christmas gift to the 3 people who listen to us, right?
Do you have anything else to add on the Formula 1 part, Aniket?
For some reason, I felt, and this is a feeling, but there was more sadness over the driver losing the World Championship than actually winning the Constructors' Championship, right?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And it felt weird because that is a competition in itself. And Red Bull celebrated as if they won the Constructors' Championship while they didn't. And Mercedes was sad that Lewis Hamilton lost in spite of actually winning the Constructors' Championship.
Yeah, I mean, that just tells you that the Drivers' Championship is definitely much more highly regarded than the Constructors. Constructors is important, but it's definitely second in line to the Drivers' Championship. So we'll see. As I said, I'm really looking forward to the next season. Mercedes, for their part, did protest Red Bull's win, and they lost the appeal, and then they finally said congratulations to Max Verstappen. So I think overall they handled it quite classily. They did all they could to appeal, protest. At the end of the day, it's a sport. It is what it is. FIA made those regulations. They did not follow it, but then they are the governing body, and they'll do what they want at this time. So definitely looking forward to the next season.
So just to conclude this, Gautam, so like you said, Mercedes appealed, then they withdrew their appeal. They came out with a very classy statement. So FIA has put in a panel to investigate this, and Mercedes say that they're going to do everything to help FIA make this sport a better sport. So, and they're going to follow up, and quote unquote, they say we're going to hold FIA accountable, right? So they're going to follow up on this. So that's a good part. I also cannot not say this. Lewis Hamilton handled this with so much class. Like, there was just so much class in the way, especially after what happened and how it went down. He was just super classy about it. So shout out to Lewis Hamilton. And we must add, this was the final year of the Hamilton-Bottas pairing, which I don't know how I feel, because Bottas was absolutely useless in this race. Like, Hamilton could have definitely done with a teammate. Yeah, could have definitely done with a teammate, and our man was trailing somewhere at the back with a Mercedes car. So it sucks, but I mean, more power to him. He's going to Alfa Romeo next season, and he's going to be replaced by George Russell. So very exciting young British driver who's going to be alongside Lewis Hamilton. So it'll be a great season coming up. So Antonio Giovinazzi is leaving. This was his concluding race. His contract has not been extended by Alfa Romeo, and he's going to be replaced by the first Chinese F1 driver, Jianyu Zhu. Kimi Raikkonen's last race ended pretty anticlimactic. He basically couldn't finish his race, and he says it doesn't matter. Typical Kimi style. Yeah, exactly. That's Kimi for you. And that's about it.
I think with that, Aniket, we'll end with, by the way, we're going to do the ending a little differently of the podcast. We'll end with some football stuff, but let's give out recommendations first.
So my recommendation is this article at CNN, and it's basically about Sebastian Alvarez, who was a Chilean Air Force pilot, and now he flies with the wingsuit. And he did this crazy stuff again with Red Bull being sponsored, where he actually jumps out an aircraft, goes into an active volcano, and comes out of it with a wingsuit. So I just thought it was fascinating and crazy. He seems to be like a crazy adrenaline junkie. So I find adventure sports very interesting. So I found that very nice to know. And the other thing is we're going to put up a YouTube link of, I think the YouTube channel is called Chain Bear, who basically talks about a lot of F1 related stuff. And it's one of the good balanced, I say balanced in air quotes, because it's tough to get a very balanced opinion on this rivalry between Max and Lewis, because everyone's tilted one way or the other. But he does a pretty decent job of summarizing what actually happened in the race, and a lot of it was spoken. I've taken a lot from that as well to learn what actually happened. So these are my 2 recommendations for today.
My recommendation is Sharda Agra's article in the Hindustan Times about the whole Virat Kohli, Saurav Ganguly captaincy saga. I just want to read the last paragraph where she critiques Saurav Ganguly. She says, no matter who said what and at what time, an even deeper disappointment lies under this. That our cricket's rare player president has let a fellow Indian captain be treated in a manner that he himself fought against. It's a great critique, great article. She kind of lays the context and also gives out her opinion as well. So definitely check that out. Also check out Siddharth Monga's piece, who I really like as a writer, on ESPN Cricket Info about Virat Kohli's greatest gambit yet, which is to take on the board. And then my other recommendation is the Formula 1 YouTube channel. Formula 1 is a great content creator. You have to check their YouTube channel out to see how much content they pump out. Especially for this race, they have radios, live radios as the drive was happening, live radios on the paddock, split screen of the drivers talking to the teams, just the race highlights. You have so much content out there, so definitely go check the YouTube channel out. And obviously our final recommendation is News Laundry. Go to newslaundry.com, guys. Go hit that subscribe button. Please pay to keep news free. There is a Christmas discount going right now, I believe, till the 26th or the 27th. So check it out if you are listening to us for the first time. We are hosted by a wonderful news critique website and also a ground reporting website called newslaundry.com. You can go to that website and hit that subscribe button. We have a lot of podcasts, ground reports, good articles as well. So definitely go check it out.
And it's the holiday season, so if you're planning to gift someone something, give them a subscription to independent media, because the media needs you now more than ever, I think. We typically in this podcast don't go into the politics, but given the situation I think the world is in, I won't say India, and especially the media situation in India, I think we need folks to step up and fund independent media so that our voices are heard, right? It's and that's where democracy flourishes. So guys, go ahead, buy yourself subscriptions, give subscriptions, make knowledge available to folks.
I 100% second that. Shout out to David Croft and the whole Formula 1 commentary team. I think they are a very, very high level, high class. They set a very high standard for sports commentary as such. Aniket, we should end with football, which kind of sad news with Sergio Agüero having to retire from football because he had a heart condition and the doctors advised him not to play. So at the age of 33, he's decided to call it quits with a heavy heart.
It's extremely sad because he was such a phenomenal player, and I think he's in anyone's book. He's there at least in the top 3. He was a goal machine in my books, and I was especially excited because he came to my club Barcelona, and I was hoping, given the turmoil we are in, we could definitely do with someone like Sergio Agüero leading our front line. But I just wish him good health from here on. And on another front, Gotham, so similar heart-related stuff, Inter Milan and Christian Eriksen. So Christian Eriksen, who with his Denmark team actually unfortunately collapsed on the field due to a heart condition, and he was revived by the doctors on field, and then the doctors were also given I think a UEFA President's Award or something for their actions. So he was back, and Inter Milan and Christian Eriksen have mutually terminated their contracts because Serie A does not allow players with heart starters that has been implanted in him. So I don't know if he's back into playing fit conditions or what's actually happening, but these are the grounds he and Inter Milan decided to part ways on. And it's very interesting, the statement Inter Milan came out with is very nice actually. It's in complete support and of the time he spent helping them in the Scudetto.
My guess is that he's going to be back in some form for another club. It might not be a bigger club, but we'll see what happens. But
I hope it's Barcelona.
We'll see what happens. But yeah, that's kind of sad. But we're definitely going to watch Christian Eriksen play at some point, I think. But yeah, definitely sad that Agüero is not going to play anymore. 175 appearances, 74 goals for Atletico, 275 appearances, 184 goals for City. Just 4 appearances for Barcelona, 1 goal. He still scored for Barcelona, which is great. But we should leave our viewers with what is probably his brightest, most dramatic, his greatest moment on the field, when he secured Manchester City that dramatic final minute, final second goal against Queen's Park Rangers all those years ago.
Agüero! I swear you'll never see anything like this ever again. 2 goals in added time for Manchester City to snatch the title away from Manchester United.
Which meant that they snatched the league off of Manchester United's hands. One of the most dramatic ends to a Premier League season ever. So we will leave all of our listeners with that audio clip.
Which only concludes my point that he's always scored when it matters. So no matter which club he's played for, he's always scored when it matters.
So having said that, we'll leave you with that wonderful soundbite. And until we talk to you again, take care everybody. Thank you, Aniket.
Bye-bye.
All the News Laundry podcasts are available on Stitcher, iTunes and any other podcast platform.
Please subscribe to News Laundry. Help us keep news independent. To catch all our podcasts on news, pop culture, current affairs and sport, visit newslaundry.com. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram and subscribe to our YouTube channel.